there were some reports this week saying that Israel is running out of tanks, and they're using, and this is something that you covered weeks ago, but they're using, like, training tanks. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more that we, are not being told that is
Well, we
being
get
covered up.
that's why we get little nuggets of it,
Yeah.
right? They don't tell us the truth, but that came out what you're saying came out because of a Supreme Court case about women being, put into mechanized, uh, into armored brigades, and so it came out in the course of that Supreme Court challenge that they don't have enough tanks. They don't
We
have
can
enough
actually
vehi
yeah, sorry, I say we can actually show the story,
Okay.
Tamara,
Yeah.
if you wanna put up the
There
story
we go.
from
Yeah.
Ynet. This is, of course, the major Israeli news site, Yediot Ahronot, reporting on this, and what this story says, it's by Yoav Zitun, which regular viewers will know is Ynet's military correspondent, who's revealed many nuggets, important nuggets of information over the past few months. And it says here the IDF said on Monday that has a shortage of tanks after many were damaged in the war. Ammunition was also in short supply, the military said in court filings in response to a motion brought before the Supreme Court. According to the filing, the military chief of staff decided to delay incorporating women in fighting positions until November 2025 due to the severe shortage in the armored core arsenal. I'm still quoting from the article. This is the first time that the IDF has openly admitted to a shortage of equipment and munitions, as well as officers and enlisted men after many were killed or injured since the war broke out in October. Quote, the number of operational tanks in the Corps is insufficient for the needs of the war and for conducting experiments of the deployment of women, end quote. The IDF wrote in its response to the court, we are working to increase the arsenal. So that's really an extraordinary admission, and I think it bears out everything we've been seeing in the videos that we've been watching week after week now for almost 10 months.
Yeah, we there was in the Israeli press, about a week and a half ago, there was an allusion to 500 tanks being damaged, and that the damage of a tank, it's not like your car, you don't take it into the shop and get it, a new bumper put on. The time to turn around a damaged and some of these tanks are a lot more than damaged, as we've seen. Turning those around, takes a long time, longer than it takes many months. In some cases, it takes years. And this is the force that they're saying is going to invade Lebanon. So this the training brigades is also a secondary part of it because they don't have the training brigades have to be deployed in Gaza. They need those troops being deployed in Gaza. They were deployed. The training brigade was deployed during the Jabalia camp raid a couple months ago. And when that training brigade rotated out, that's what ended the operation in the Jabalia camp. The other two brigades couldn't carry out the fight without the third brigade, and that training brigade rotated out. So they all rotated out. So it's even impacting their battle plans insofar as Israel has battle plans beyond just destroying. They're not able to achieve it because they're short on weaponry. They're also short on munitions, and we're hearing soldiers being told to use different munitions. They're running low on 155 millimeter shell, howitzer shells that are that they rain terror down on Gaza's civilians. Like, because I covered the battlefields in this report, but of course, as Nora's report shows, the bombings and the artillery shelling that happens all over the Gaza Strip. They're not battlefield specific. They're raining down those shells constantly and literally in the hundreds of thousands of them. Early in the war, they said they had used 100,000. It was still in November, and that included a period of time of the 10-day pause, prisoner exchange pause. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of these shells being rained down. And so there's a shortage of those if you want to go to war in Lebanon as well. So there's, I think, a lot of bluster happening from the Israelis. They don't seem to show their materiel, their manpower, and even their military acumen is not prepared to expand this war. into Lebanon under these conditions as we're seeing it right now. And if they are, it's going to be a catastrophe for them.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of topics of discussion, just snippets of news over the last few days. Ali, I know that a new Human Rights Watch report came out.
Yes.
Give us a sense of the significance of it and what the basic issues are.
Well, this was published today, and it's more than 200 pages. So I couldn't tell you I've read the whole thing, but I've looked at it, and it's disappointing, to say the least, that Human Rights Watch took what is now a very tired, both sidesy approach, trying to pin on Palestinians all sorts of crimes, and this is really just, again, it's more than 200 pages, so I haven't read the whole report. I've just sort of focused in on some issues that I'm very well versed in as a good way to kind of test how the report deals with them. And there's some quite shocking elements to this, but before I get to that, I will say that despite the biases of this report, despite its attempt to be both sidesy and to show Palestinians as committing all sorts of crimes, again, there may be violations in the standards of international law, but I feel like they were really trying to look for something. And yet, this report that really bends over backwards in that way is the latest body to find that there is no verifiable evidence for the mass rapes. So, Tamara, maybe we can put up that little snippet of the report that I indicated earlier. And there you can see under the title Crimes Involving Acts of Sexual and Gender-Based Violence, they say, quote, Human Rights Watch was not able to gather verifiable information through interviews with survivors or witnesses to rape during the assault on October 7th. So that's the bottom line there, even though they sort of swaddle this in all sorts of language, which is to say, well, maybe it happened. We may never know. We may never find out. But the bottom line is they couldn't find, Human Rights Watch, a tens of $1 million organization with all its researchers and resources, could not find any verifiable evidence. So that's one thing. The other thing to point out about this is they rely on 𝐓𝐶𝐞 as a
Right.
source. Now they claim, oh, we're very careful and we corroborate things, but they rely on 𝐓𝐶𝐞, the ultra-Orthodox extremist Jewish organization that we've talked about many times, about how they were instrumental in inventing and disseminating many of the October 7th atrocity propaganda and lies, burned children, the rape hoax, a fetus cut out of a mother, all things that turned out to be absolute lies. And Human Rights Watch is still taking 𝐓𝐶𝐞 seriously, quite shocking. Another thing that shocked me, Tamara, you can put that second snippet back up, is they looked at the issue of what happened in Kibbutz Be'eri at Pessi Cohen's house. This was the incident that we've covered many times where Israeli General Barak Hiram ordered a tank to fire shells at this house where more than a dozen Israelis were being held captive by Palestinian fighters. And shockingly, from what I've read, Human Rights Watch whitewashes this. They say here, the operative sentence, the fight that after Israeli tanks opened fire on the home, the fighters were killed, as well as 12 hostages who were killed in the crossfire. That word crossfire is a whitewashing word, which is designed to make it seem like, oh, there was a battle and, these people just died. How unfortunate. They were killed by the Israeli tank shelling. And I'll just give people a sneak preview here that our colleague David Sheen and I are working on a new article about the Israeli army's own whitewash of this shelling ordered by Barak Hiram in Kibbutz Be'eri, which appears to be an application of the Hannibal Directive that Asa talked about last week and on previous programs regarding Israel deliberately killing its own people or acting with total disregard, at the very least, for the lives of its own citizens. So I just wanted to sort of say that about the Human Rights Watch report, again, with the caveat that I haven't read the whole thing, but those are just some things that leapt out at me on a very initial reading. And in fact, the report itself, in all 200 plus pages, does not mention the Hannibal Directive, doesn't mention it in the Human Rights Watch report.
Well,
Incredible. And
yeah.
that's especially shocking after the revelations, which Asa talked about in last week's program, of the Israeli army itself admitting the widespread use of the Hannibal Directive, of it being ordered from the first hours of October 7th until well into the evening, turning the Gaza boundary area into, quote, killing zone, that every vehicle was to be fired on. Again, these are the things that Asa talked about last week, and people can find that segment on the Electronic Intifada YouTube channel if they haven't seen it or they want to watch it again. And that's not addressed in any serious way in the Human Rights Watch report.
The idea there was a crossfire was really misleading as well. That this is kind of the Israeli narrative, really. But if you read what actually happened, according to these two surviving civilian eyewitnesses, they say the Palestinian fighters were actually negotiating, and it was the Israeli forces who fired when they arrived. They fired on the home immediately. And then they're trying to make out that there was tank fire, as if like it was almost accidental. It was very much not accidental. It was a way to, according to Barak Hiram, he said that he wanted to end the negotiations. The negotiations were over, and so we're going to fire on the home.
Yeah, and as I say, we'll be looking at the Israeli army's recently published so-called investigation, but it's actually a cover-up in this upcoming article. So I'm sure we'll be saying more about this.
Yeah. The story that just won't go away. The other, just very quickly, I wanted to bring up some new reports that have been circulating about the Israeli economy. Some reports in Israeli media, and then here we have Al-Mayadeen offering a summary of it, saying that 46,000 businesses have closed since October 7th. And just to I'm not a math guy, but I had my friend Ghassan help me crunch numbers about what this means in real terms. And let's say that, for these small businesses, which are, minimum 5 employees, 46,000 businesses at 5 employees each mean that there's about 230,000 employees now that don't have jobs in Israel as the economy continues to take a nosedive, which is about 2.3% of the population. This is compounded with Israel's GDP, which has also taken a nosedive, and I believe the quarterly GDP numbers aren't out yet, but last quarter it was, I think, 20% that has been decreased for Israel's GDP. What does this mean? I mean, there's it's pretty significant that Israel's economy is on the brink, that it is collapsing societally and economically, politically. Everything that Ilan Pappé said a few months ago on this podcast, Shir Hever said recently, and this is I mean, what can we make of this?
I think it means that many more Israelis will be trying to follow Yair Netanyahu to Miami or other sunnier climes.
Well, it's definitely something that we're going to keep watching.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment, These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.